Hello, welcome. We're so excited to have each of you joining us today to record results and new opportunities in real estate lead generation. My name is Jamie Cleanser, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing at CINC, and we have a great team with us, the CINC Client Marketing team, that will be giving you the best practices, what they've known, trends, and things to empower your business. Before we get started, as a couple individuals settle in, I want to provide a couple housekeeping items. The first is this webinar will be recorded. So if you receive a phone call from a buyer that you're working with or you need to step away for a few minutes, please know that in the next 24 to 48 hours, we will be sending this recording. If you have any questions during this webinar, please share them via the Q&A within your Zoom presentation. And finally, if you love this content, other videos and previous recordings are located in our YouTube CINC channel. And so please dive into that for resources similar to what you're seeing today. To kick it off, I want to introduce Dan Lott, who is CINC's VP of Client Marketing. Dan has been with CINC for 9 years. We were talking about before we started Dan's experience. He's seen CINC grow. He's worked with thousands and thousands of real estate agents across the US and Canada. But within not just only working with real estate agents, but has over 20 years of experience in SEM, marketing, and lead generation. So it's a worthwhile resource on how to drive you the lowest cost per lead. So without further ado, Dan, I'm going to let you introduce your team and let's get things going.
Well, thank you very much, Jamie, for that very warm introduction. Yes, I want to introduce my team because the team is a large part of why we're here, because we have the best client marketing advertising team in the business. All right. Oh no. Technical difficulties already. My little thing isn't working. Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. Today's presenters. There I am, the VP of Client Marketing. As Jamie said, I've been here since the beginning, pretty much. I started off the client marketing team, the advertising department, and we're joined by Harry, Hot Sauce Curbo, who oversees the paid search, or not the paid search, the paid social. And he is responsible for Facebook, Instagram, and Listcast advertising. And there's Eric. Eric is he does it all. One of his primary responsibilities is he does all the display marketing, so banner ads, things like that. He also was responsible for the Listcast development, but he does a lot of things, including managing the YouTube channel, which Jamie referenced earlier. All right, yeah, so the reason we are holding this webinar is, our team doesn't usually kind of toot our own horn or brag about our results, but literally this is the best time for CINC real estate advertising. The Google cost per lead in May was the lowest it's ever been. The Facebook cost per lead was the lowest it's ever been in May. The list cost per lead was the lowest it's ever been. If you are on the fence, if you're a current client and you've reduced your spend in advertising, you should really reevaluate that, because the value you're getting from your advertising is so much higher now than it was last year. And so I said it's this year is the best year ever. We scheduled to have this webinar a few weeks ago because of the strength of our April performance, and then we blew April out of the water with May. April was the best month ever. Now it's been replaced by May. And then also the first quarter of the year was the best we've ever had. So we are just firing on all cylinders. And as well as the good performance, we've also developed some new marketing opportunities, piggybacking on our existing branded remarketing product that will help you reach out to your sphere of influence. And that is extremely important now because a lot of folks are, working from home, they're staying at home. This is a good way to reach your sphere. And so I'm just going to give my specialty is the Google ads. I'm going to talk about the performance of Google. Then Harry's going to talk about Facebook and Listcast, and then Eric is going to finish up with the Sphere of Influence remarketing program. All right, here is, this shows, how our cost per lead has done over the last year and a half. On my screen, Eric's face is over the second quarter dot, but it is very low. The dots for the second quarter of 2020 is very low. It's something like $3.07 or something crazy. The May number,
318, yeah.
318. Wow. Okay. But so in May it was $2.97, and I've been here since the beginning of the program, and this is by far the lowest we've ever had. And as you can see, and this isn't like a one-trick pony either. It's every one of these dots is lower than the preceding quarter of the preceding year. So although it's really accelerated over the last 2 quarters, the trend is very positive. And we also in May had the most leads generated, if you add up all of our portfolio, with 327,000 leads, buyer leads generated on Google. And that is larger than the population of Cincinnati. So imagine everybody in Cincinnati becoming a lead. That's a lot of leads in Ohio, but they're spread throughout North America. And what's important about that is a lot of folks have reduced their spend, but maybe 10% of our clients reduced their spend, but we were still able to generate that many. Not that it's not that 90% of our clients stopped spending, and that's why we're able to generate that really good cost per lead, because the spend didn't really go down, and that's why we're able to generate so many leads. All right, so, and this kind of verifies what I was saying in terms of the year-over-year improvement. So I'm just putting my guy over there so I can see the numbers. So in second quarter of 2020, the quarter we're in, if you compare April and May of last year versus April and May of this year, if you have the same amount of money invested in your advertising, so suppose you have $1,000 in Google advertising spend, you are going to get 79% more leads now than you were last year. And last year was pretty good. So it was actually pretty, if you look at we had improved year over year 4%. So we were all excited. And in fact, I remember at our mid-year kickoff or whatever, I was talking about how great our results are because we improved 4%. Because any sort of improvement is impressive, because the general trend is things are more expensive. So the fact that we were able to beat that trend and get a 4% improvement, we're like, oh, that's great. And then it just kept getting better and better, 24% better, and 37% better, 24% better. And that was before this quarter, which was just blew it out of the water. And why the improvements? The obvious reason for the improvement was the coronavirus lockdown. It has caused, there's caused 2 things. There's a lot of advertisers dropped out of the real estate advertisers dropped out. They stopped their advertising, which Google advertising, it's based on an auction model, so that the fewer advertisers there are, then the cheaper the clicks are. So a lot of folks dropped out of the advertising. It wasn't really the case with CINC, but it could be, I don't know this, but maybe Zillow or something decided to stop advertising or whatever it is, but the clicks were a lot cheaper. And gradually the search traffic increased. Right when the crisis hit, search traffic went down dramatically. We're going to show that on the next slide, but then it spiked up, which we'll also see. So it's really interesting that two different factors were happening simultaneously. And then also, but that only that's only the cause of the last 2 months. The reason for the other previous improvements are we've done some work on bid strategies, which we have Google buyer leads and we have Google seller leads. So we've been experimenting on which one, which type of bid strategy through Google is most effective. And we've really hit on some stuff, which is helping our cost per lead. Even without the the coronavirus effect, we are still up 25%, which is a huge increase. And hyper-local targeting, this is something that we've been working with for maybe, well, for 9 years we've been working with it, but we really kind of doubled down our efforts over the last 6 months, trying to do some, using some automation to allow us to drill down some more with hyper-local advertising, which has reaped the benefits. All right. So here is, this is a Google Trends. Google has this cool tool where you can just type in a phrase in the Google Trends report to see how it goes over time. And so the usual search pattern for Google is that beginning in January, traffic spikes and it gets more and more traffic until the end of summer, and then it starts to die down. It's like a kind of a rounded thing. And then November and December have low search traffic because everybody's thinking about the holiday. This year was different because if you look, there's this little W. This is Harry and I did a webinar on this topic right after the crisis hit, and where we talked about this. It was search traffic dropped off dramatically, which caused there was a lot of anxiety about whether people were still gonna search for houses. And if you look at this little graph, there's this little uptick is when we held the webinar. So it was, a little bit of it was wishful thinking that the results were going to improve, but it did. There was like that little increase, so I was able to kind of base the decision that yes, things were going to turn back to normal, and it did. As you can tell, the traffic has, it's through the roof now. So lots of people are online at home looking at houses. So in mid-March into April, there was a sharp decline in traffic, but now it is on par with last year and even a little bit better.
That speaks to your expertise, Dan. I remember on that webinar, I mean, you called that. And
it does speak to my expertise, Harry.
Not only handsome, but smart too. And I don't only say that because you're my boss and my review is coming up.
Okay, yes. Good point. Anything else you'd like to add, Eric? You want to chime in? So also commend me.
Eric just had his review. He's good.
I'm sorry, my kid was crying and I was trying to mute the microphone.
So this slide is just another excuse to use my heat map, which I love. I love my heat map. I have my whole house is decorated with various heat maps of different cities.
It's overwhelming.
It's beautiful. Anyway, this is Atlanta. And this, as I said, is going to be our emphasis for the second half of the year. I did another webinar for our CINC Rev presentation we did a month ago about the importance of doing hyper-local advertising and the efforts that CINC is doing in this effort. So this is a way for if you are, if you're in Sandy Springs, Georgia, and you want to get more leads in Sandy Springs, we're developing some technology to make it a lot easier to drill down into specific sub-markets within your markets. And this morning I did a big push, which I'm excited to see how that's going to work. We have a lot of automation. We have a big tech team that's developed a lot of these tools. So we are rolling some stuff out, and it's not really customer facing yet, but you'll get to see it towards the end of this year. But behind the scenes, it's done some good results. And it's just a good way to diversify your lead flow as well as get you the leads in the markets that you want. If you are in the Phoenix area and you are advertising in Scottsdale and Mesa, but you're getting too many leads in Mesa, we can drill down in Scottsdale, get you more leads in Scottsdale, keep Mesa, but make sure you get as many in the areas you want. And this is the point of the webinar. Every time I do a webinar, I always say, if you are a current advertiser and you're not getting the leads where you want them, just let us know. We can, it'll take 5 seconds and we can pause. Like if suppose you don't want any leads in Mesa at all, we can turn off your Mesa ad group, because it's sad if you you're with us for a few months or a year, and then a year in, you're like, well, I love your program, but I'm getting all these leads in but at Mesa, and I don't work in Mesa. So just let us know. We are happy to help you.
Can I say something real quick too?
Yes, you can, Harry.
I think this is a really big differentiator for us too. Like when I talk to people about the way that we advertise and the way that we're able to drive leads at such a low cost with high quality. Like if you think about how someone searches, maybe I'm relocating, I'm moving from Nashville to Atlanta for my job. My first search is probably going to be homes for sale in Atlanta. Then maybe I find a community that I like, maybe that becomes Marietta. And then I find a school that I like. So I search for homes in that school zone. And then, I know what zip codes feed into that school zone. So I think the way that we're able to include all of that in a campaign is a really big differentiator and drives leads at a good cost and helps you to get those more down funnel leads, as well as the people that are, hey, I just got the news, I'm just moving, searching at the top funnel too. So I think this is a big deal.
And one of the, we've been around for 9 years, and we have generated something like 15 million leads or something like that it's slightly less than the population of New York of number of leads that we've generated. So we're able to know that within Sandy Springs, submarkets that deliver a cost per lead that is better than Sandy Springs as a whole. So it's just a benefit of a really good technology system, as well as data that we have just mined over the last 10 years, and it's all coming together. So we're excited about what's going to happen over the second half of the year. So I'm going to stop sharing. Now Harry's going to take over.
All right. The handoff. This is the tricky part. All right, here we go.
Oh, actually, before you start, Harry, anybody who is interested in talking to a product expert, please put your name and phone number in the Q&A, and then product expert will get back to you.
All right, cool.
We usually wait around an hour and a half into these webinars before we start, in which case it's just me and Harry and Eric talking to ourselves. So,
all right, can you guys see my screen?
I can.
Is it majestic? All right, cool. So thanks, Dan. My name is Harry Hot Sauce Curbo. I'm the Director of Paid Social Media Advertising over at CINC. Coming to you live here from the Lego table in my house at Woodstock. So I'm going to talk to you guys along the same lines of what we've seen on Google. A lot of that has been mirrored on Facebook. So same deal for us. We're seeing record results this year. The two charts here, the one on the left shows the Facebook buyer advertising. I call that cold target advertising, where we're showing ads to people based on a demographic profile that we've developed and the location where they are. We've seen that cost per lead fall from just under $4.50 in December of 2019 to this past month, it was under $2, which is the lowest it's ever been on average. And the same on Listcast. On the Listcast cost per sign up, that dropped to, I think it was $1.60 in May. So we're seeing those same trends of, as the coronavirus lockdowns continue, lead cost is falling dramatically. And that makes now a really good time. These leads, I always tell people, buying a house is not an impulse decision, right? Like you aren't going through the checkout and, I'm going to take that pack of Mentos. Oh, and let me get that 30-year fix too, right? So this is something that is going to take a while to nurture, and it's a numbers game. So now is a great time to take advantage of these low lead costs and get people into the pipeline. And that would especially be true for Facebook. We tend to expect, since leads are targeted proactively on Facebook versus seeing an ad based on active search, Facebook leads tend to take more nurture to convert just on average. So going ahead and getting these people in the system now and letting the CINC system do what it does best through behavioral messaging, drip campaigns, all that good stuff. Now is the time to do that. And so I think there's two main causes to this drop. Sorry, those allergies are getting me today. but two main causes to this drop. So on the left, we're showing CPMs, which is cost per milli, or the cost it is to show the ads to 1,000 people. This has fallen dramatically, right? So the same ads running in December, it was costing about $21 to show that ad to 1,000 people, which is not a bad cost. And December tends to be the highest month anyway, November, December, because you've got all that increased competition. Other advertisers are pumping budget into Facebook and Instagram, targeting people for Black Friday sales, Christmas sales. So that drives up the cost per milli just normally. And just like Dan said, we see that same cycle. January 1st, that's routinely the best week of the year every year. Everybody is just so tired of their families, and you know, that's when the New Year's resolution, I'm going to get that house this year, really kicks in. So the search traffic just explodes, and then we tend to see it slowly increase through the months of, you know, March, April, May, and then once we hit the summer again, June, July, when the kids get out of school, you know, the school year's over, that's when it's convenient to move, and so that search, the CPMs tend to drop then. But we've seen it drop pretty much every month from December to now. And if you look at the line, you see it was following that normal trend. So it's high in December, drops substantially in January, picks back up in February. And we would have normally expected that to continue to increase slightly until we got to probably this month. But you know, what happens in March? That's when the coronavirus lockdowns really go into effect, the middle of that month. And so we've seen the cost per milli continue to drop each month till in June, it was, I think, $5 and something, which is honestly the lowest that I've ever seen it. And then on the right shows the conversion rate for these ads. And this is really interesting because there was a lot of angst, I think, when Facebook rolled out their targeting for housing, employment, and credit, which if you're not familiar with that, it just means that any ads basically for anything that we do, you know, for housing, recruiting, or lenders for loan types, now go into a special bucket that has reduced targeting options. Specifically, you are no longer able to include things like age or zip code, and a lot of the interests were pulled out as well. You know, we used to be able to target, for instance, homeowners. We used to be able to target based on income levels. That's all been removed. And there was a lot of angst there with lead quality from Facebook. You know, would that suffer? And so Facebook said when they made that change, another change that they made was to their algorithm to more thoroughly scan ad wordings and images to try and figure out, you know, hey, this is an ad for housing. This user on Facebook seems to be interested in housing, so we need to show them that ad. And I think this chart actually shows that that happened. So you've got December, you know, conversion rate falling from December into January, into February, and then March, it really drops. Now, why? The reason for that, I think, is you have an explosion in the audience, right? You have so many new members in this audience, and the algorithm doesn't know yet, you know, what these people are all about. But as that audience has continued to be high, we've continued to see those decreasing cost per impression on the left. The conversion rate is coming back up because now those people have been being served ads. The algorithm is learning more about what it is they're actually looking for, and so that conversion rate is ticking back up. So it's cheaper to show the ads to people, and the conversion rate is increasing. So we're seeing lower cost per leads. But why? That's all. That's all on this slide. So it's the same two trends that Dan was describing really on the Google side. So the shutdown brought a lot of consumer changes. This is a quote from the Facebook business blog. The usage growth from COVID-19 is unprecedented across the industry. We're experiencing new records in usage almost every day, right? So daily active users increased 11% from year over year, so Q1 2019 to Q1 2020. And I'm interested to see the Q2 numbers. I think that that's going to really skyrocket because that's when we're really into the meat of the lockdowns, when people are stuck at home. Same on the monthly active users. That's seen a 10% increase year over year. So this just means there are more people on Facebook and Instagram more regularly, giving Facebook and Instagram more opportunities to show the ads and have someone convert. And then on the back end of that, businesses reduce their ad spend across the board. And this is one of my favorite quotes. I mean, you have to kind of take it in perspective, but Mark Zuckerberg said, hey man, we're just trying to keep the lights on over here. And that was referring to this explosion in usage, but also this pulling back of marketing budget. So, you know, Facebook had a lot of changes where they're having to scramble to fix issues. And, you know, they're also making enhancements to make sure posts aren't inflammatory and stuff like that. So they're doing more work, but they're pulling in less spend. eMarketer, which is a pretty good marketing firm that does a lot of forecasting, estimated a 20% reduction in global ad spend for 2020. And then Facebook, in a state of business report, estimated that 31% of SMBs and then 51% of personally operated businesses were pausing, at least at some point during COVID-19. And they made changes as well. One of the ad types in Facebook is a store visits placement to encourage people to come to your store. You know, Facebook stopped allowing those ad types to run. And if you think about it, if you've got a brick and mortar business that relies on people coming into the store, there's really no reason to advertise, you know, when people are locked down. And also on the targeting side, you know, when it comes to housing, we're targeting a lot of the same people as just general businesses would be. People who, you know, most likely have income and are looking to make some kind of purchase. So the pulling back of these budgets means less competition. And like like Dan said, on Facebook, ads are served on an auction basis. So if you have, you know, less people at an auction, less people raising their paddles, you're able to win auctions for less money. And so now, as people are starting to open back up, I feel like there's going to be some pin-up demand there. You know, Alvaro, our CEO, you know, always says purchasing a house, you know, is inelastic, right? Like if you need to purchase a home, if you need to move, whether that's for relocating, you know, maybe there's a divorce, something like that, that's still going to be a need. You know, it's not the most convenient time, but it's still going to be a need. So as this normalcy is returning and states are opening back up, businesses are opening back up, you know, now is a great time to build that pipeline. I think we will gradually see these cost per impressions go back up as other businesses get back into the game. But I'm not sure that we'll see it uptick to what it was, at least not for a while. But now is a really good time because costs are still dropping to build that pipeline. And so, you know, how can you do that outside of just your general Facebook advertising with CINC? These are some specific examples which may make sense for you. So we have clients now that are promoting specific listings and promoting virtual tours, which is also a standard option now on the CINC sites. People can request a virtual tour, a virtual appointment right there on the CINC site. So if you have a listing that shows well, this could be a really good option. You know, have someone request to see it virtually, walk them through using FaceTime or Zoom or anything like that. Custom ad campaigns are another good example. So we have clients that are offering specific ad programs or specific buying programs during COVID-19. If you have something like this, you can always work with our Facebook team. And we have a group of people who do nothing but make real estate ads on Facebook and Instagram all day, every day. And we've got close to 20 years experience between us on that team. So if you have a custom ad type, a program that you want to promote, Facebook is a great way to do that. And then Listcast, I think is really important. I think it's more important now than it's ever been. Listcast is our dynamic property remarketing service. So in a nutshell, it takes homes that people are viewing on your CINC site, and then automatically creates ads with homes that they've already been looking at, or homes that are similar to what they've been looking at, and shows them these ads. And it's the coolest thing to me about Listcast. You know, you always talk in advertising about relevancy, relevancy, relevancy. Every single person in your Listcast audience can be seeing a totally different ad based specifically on what they're looking at. So this helps to nurture leads that do register. And then, you know, I always tell people our conversion rates are around, 10 to 20% on our sites, which is well above the industry average. But if you think about that, you've got 80 to 90% of the people who hit your site and don't sign up. Listcast can bring those people back, and we know we're targeting the right people because they've already expressed interest on your site. So it really takes any targeting and relevancy concerns out of the equation. We're only showing these ads to people who are searching on your site. And then again, as those cost per impressions fall, it's cheaper now. We're able to show these ads to more people for the same budget, which is bringing in more and more leads and re-sign-ups and re-engaging existing leads through Listcast. And so if you guys have never run Listcast before, we did send out a promo earlier this month, or the end of last month, for a Listcast buy one, get one. One of the offers that Dan wanted to mention on the webinar here is we're extending that buy one, get one offer to people who are on the webinar. If you would like to take advantage of that, there'll be a slide at the end as well. But if you'd like to take advantage of that, all you need to do is go to cinklistcast.com, enter your information, and then in the promo code, you can type in BOGO. You would pay for month one, whether you choose the $300 or $500 option, and then CINC would cover month two. As with any of the CINC products, there's no contract on the ad side, anything like that. It's a month-to-month commitment. So we would definitely recommend that you give it a try. Let it run for at least 3 to 6 months would be our recommendation. But this can really help to augment the return that you're getting, not just from CINC, but anybody who hits your CINC site, whether that's from an email or Zillow or Trulia, or you just see them on the street and you talk to them. Anyone is eligible to go into that Listcast audience and can see those ads and be nurtured. One caveat, I don't know, I guess I haven't said that word in like 5 years. It sounded really weird coming out. One thing with that is we cannot start new Listcast campaigns in California currently due to CCPA. But other than that, if you're interested in it, if you have questions, please let us know. If you'd like to get signed up, you can go on over to cinklistcast.com.
On the with Listcast, it's really important. It's one of the things that we stress is that, especially if you have a large budget, that you diversify your budget.
Yes.
So a lot of people will, sign up and like spend $2,500 a month on Google buyer advertising, and they should. A better way would to do a combination of Google buyer along with Listcast and just regular Facebook. And the Listcast, the lead quality is really good with Listcast, and the lead price, even though Google is at its best number ever, the price for Listcast is still lower than it. So it's
almost made it.
Google, yes. Oh, so anyway, so it's Google quality leads at a lower Facebook price. So we definitely recommend Listcast.
And I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a couple responses to questions.
Oh, hey, let me say, can I say one thing on that?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
I think it's an important thing to stress that all the things that we're presenting today, our recommendation, our strategy is that you use all of these things in conjunction. When, like you said, Dan, when people launch, we recommend that they start with the majority of their budget on the Google side, because that active search, we do expect that those are going to bring the most ready now leads with the quickest turnaround. But you should also have some on the Facebook side, because though those leads will most likely require more nurture on average, 6 months in, you're putting leads in at a lower cost with higher contact validity. You're focusing on the Google side, which is driving as many active buyers as you can. And then you've also got the Listcast side and the remarketing side running on the back end, which is, you know, capturing people that hit your site and leave, and nurturing the people that sign up, so that when you call, you know, when they do pick up, oh, hey, yeah, been seeing your ads all over Facebook. You know, you're the one that's been following me on Facebook for the last 3 months in a good way. So, you know, I think that's an important understanding, is that our recommendation, our strategy that we recommend to clients is all of these things in conjunction. So.
Good point, Harry. And a couple of questions I got were, how about seller leads? The cost of leads on seller has improved a lot. It is,
Yep.
It's still more expensive than buyer. It's historically, it's more expensive. I think, I don't know offhand what it is. I think it's like it was a really good month. We made a big change in the first quarter, like a fundamental change to how we do the big truck for Google seller. And it took a little while, but it's now, like, the last couple months really good. I think it's better. But the average is something like $8 a lead, something like that, which it's a lot more than $297, but it's a lot better than, you know, 14 or whatever it was last year.
It was at 5 on the Facebook side last month too, and I think you're right, 8 on the Google side. That sounds right.
And then somebody asked about how to get a heat map. So I'm always going to answer a question about the heat map. So just if you're a current client, just ask your account manager and we will create a custom heat map for you. We have all, like, the top 100 markets or so, but you know, if you've got a smaller market, you know, we'll put one together for you. And if you are not a current client, just ask your product expert, or you know, put I guess in Q&A, say, like, hey, in the Q&A, say, hey, I'd like a heat map, and then we'll send you one.
Heat map me, bro.
Exactly.
All right, cool. I'm done for now.
So now Eric is going to talk about remarketing.
Questions, or keep going?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
All right. I'm Eric. We'll be shifting gears here and talking about remarketing. I'm going to provide a brief overview of how remarketing works, in case some of you are not familiar with the concept, and then kind of explain the opportunity that the sphere of influence aspect has created for the service, and then just kind of go into some details about remarketing in general. So go ahead and get started. So how does remarketing work? If you've ever been to, like, any kind of e-commerce site like Amazon or REI or Target or something like that, and you've looked at a few different products, and then a couple of days or maybe even a few minutes later, you're on a different website and you see advertising for the same products that you were looking at, you're basically witnessing remarketing in action. In a nutshell, how this works is when your browser visits a page that has a remarketing code on it, it's a pixel, it sends a piece of code called a cookie to put you into an audience, a remarketing audience. So everybody who's seen, you know, that sleeping bag or that pair of shoes or whatever gets sent these ads that show those same products on all manner of different websites through the Google Display Network, as well as Facebook and Instagram. That's basically kind of how it works in a nutshell. With real estate, what we're kind of doing a little differently, because we can't advertise, you know, an individual house in the e-commerce sense of the word, not to be confused with the Listcast capability. We're more focused on sort of a branding effort and kind of getting people more familiar with who you are, your brokerage, any kind of special messaging you want to cater. So it's more on the branded side of things rather than an individual transaction. So with the sphere of influence, this is something of a more recent functionality that Google just allowed us to access. We've had a long-term working relationship with Google, being a premier partner, and they kind of let us know about this a short while ago, and we were able to run some testing and verify that it works. So there's not a lot of advertisers that are doing this right now through Google. It has been, an audience match service has kind of existed in Facebook for a while, but it hasn't really paired with Google in the way that we have remarketing through CINC. But in a nutshell, what we can do is we export your lead database, um, which is comprised of both the lead gen that you have going through CINC and anybody that you may have brought in from other services, other lead gen sources, if you've migrated from another platform. You know, if it's leads coming from Zillow, or if you have somebody from Top Producer, anything like that, we're able to kind of join all of that together into one big audience, and then send it through Google and Facebook's individual matching services. And from there, they pair that up with their user information to give us an audience to send advertising. So previously, we weren't really able to advertise to anybody unless they had visited the CINC site, and that was really kind of a pain point for some of our clients who were, you know, maybe coming from a different CRM and they had a huge database and they wanted to kind of maintain that working relationship with them. We didn't really have a good solution until now to be able to kind of continue to influence them. But now with the Sphere of Influence database matching service that we have, we're able to kind of give people a jumping off point when they're new to the platform to be able to advertise to people that they already have a working relationship with, and then sort of migrate them into a more traditional branded remarketing service. Again, a lot of those more traditional remarketing audiences were just based off of incoming site traffic. So if you were new to the CINC platform and you were interested in remarketing, our previous line had been, well, you know, you're gonna have to wait 3 to 6 months. Really sorry, it's just kind of the nature of this. A lot of these rules are dictated by the networks that we use. And so, you know, that was kind of a bummer for some people who really wanted to hit the ground running with this. But now we can kind of take any pre-existing database that you have and augment a remarketing campaign with that audience. So we're no longer dependent on that site traffic. And that can be really important to kind of stay top of mind with those people that you've had a relationship with. You know, if you're in the middle of a transaction or you're transitioning platforms or something like that, being able to stay top of mind with them so that they don't kind of lose that thread when you start them on, you know, drip campaigns or auto tracks or whatever nurturing mechanisms that you're using. Through CINC, you're able to kind of keep that relationship going with them. And even if they're external, even if you're doing something else with them entirely, this kind of campaign can kind of keep you top of mind with them. And so that's pretty valuable. So why is remarketing effective? As I kind of discussed, it sort of helps preserve the value of those leads that you've already generated. So you're spending your money, your marketing money, getting these people to come to your site, giving them your information. Being able to hold on to that is something that's been problematic for a lot of people in this industry. You know, it's kind of difficult to establish that loyalty when there's so many different options out there for people to get information about the houses that they want. So being able to be memorable, being able to kind of stand out and be the person that you know, your leads want to work with, that's pretty important. And so remarketing is a way for you to kind of help maintain that relationship and establish that sort of trust in your brand and your brokerage in the business that you represent. You know, the fact that you're willing to take an extra step to put your name in front of the people that you're trying to convince to work with you, the fact that you're out there, you're showing up on, you know, their favorite lifestyle blog or the source that they get their news from or where they listen to their music on Pandora, the fact that your face and your name keeps showing up is really can be a deciding factor for getting someone's attention and making them want to work with you moving forward. The persistence of remarketing is also something that's pretty valuable. So there's a lot of other forms of display advertising that are available to people in this industry. You know, we have billboards, we have TV ads, we have direct mailers, we have those things that we've known about for a long time, but they're kind of limited in the amount of times that they can reach that same audience. But remarketing is persistent. We do have a number of rules that we kind of follow in terms of we don't want to be too annoying. We don't want to like show the ads in front of people like way too often. So we do kind of cap it. We have some convincing research that we've looked into that says between 6 and 8 times a day is sort of the saturation level you want with this kind of advertising. You really don't want to show your ad so many times that you become annoying, because beyond 8, usually people kind of have a negative connotation towards what they're seeing instead of a positive. But the fact that you can kind of maintain that level of persistence for days, for weeks, for months, and the fact that you can kind of decide how long you want that to be, adds another dimension of flexibility to remarketing that those other forms of advertising just don't have. And especially as Dan and Harry have both pointed out, with everybody spending a lot more time at home, there's really a lot more opportunity to leverage this kind of awareness. And the fact that people are spending more time on their computers while you're not able to necessarily physically meet with them, be it in your office or showing them a listing, having the ability to take advantage of every opportunity to be in front of that audience, I think is really something that everyone should be looking into. And this is a way that you can kind of maintain that relationship, even if it's subconsciously reinforced through display ads like this, just so that they remember who you are when we're on the other side of all this and they're ready to start looking at a house. So kind of some more nuts and bolts about like what you specifically get with the service. We hand make every ad set that we run on our advertising networks on Google and Facebook. And I'll show you a few examples of those here in the next slide. But we kind of can custom tailor those to your needs. We have some templates that we work off of, but we do color matching and we can incorporate different messages, and there's a lot of flexibility with what the ads can do. And if you decide to move forward with this, I can kind of work on a strategy with you in terms of like making sure that we're not trying to cram like 3 paragraphs of information into a mobile ad, that kind of thing. But things that we think are going to be an effective way of conveying your message and your brand to people. Aside from that, we guarantee a minimum of 10,000 impressions per month. Impression is just advertiser speak for an ad view. Anytime that your ads pop up on a website and someone is able to see them, that counts as an impression. It just kind of gives us a means to know that the ads are working and that they're being seen. The reality is, across our portfolio, people tend to see more like 16 to 24,000 impressions per month. Some markets, maybe more. A big deciding factor on that, and I'll kind of explain this more later, is the size of your initial audience. So the more people we can serve ads to, the more impressions you're eligible for. But there are a lot of other factors that, frankly, we don't have a lot of control over, like the advertising, the behavior that the audience engages in. So like the websites that they actually use, the other people that are in your market that are doing a similar kind of advertising. There's other market conditions and stuff like that. But basically, we wanted to give our clients a baseline of expectation. So we say 10,000 impressions per month. Unlike other forms of display advertising, there's no long-term commitment, just like Harry pointed out with our other advertising services. Branded remarketing is served on a month-to-month basis. It's a flat fee of $200 per month. Unlike pay-per-click, it is a fee. It's not a budget. We don't negotiate up and down. It becomes really difficult to manage at that level, and we'll kind of go into some detail as to why later. But just to kind of simplify things for you and for us, we just have a $200 flat fee. And month to month, if you decide, after 2-3 months you don't like it, just let us know ahead of time and we'll take it off. So here's some examples of what the ads look like. We use HTML5 and rich media to add all these animations to the websites. They work across all devices and all websites that are HTML5 enabled, which is kind of the new standard. It has replaced Flash, if you're familiar with that. That's pretty much gone at this point, but this is sort of the new standard for this sort of thing, and they're really eye-catching. We decided to go on this format because motion is, I think I read, 38% more attention grabbing. Like, people are more likely to look at moving ads than static ones. And so even though we're talking about like very short periods of time where you're capturing people's attention, being able to grab it using the ad format is an advantage. So like I said,
I want to interject here, yeah. Eric. I think these ads look great, and Eric does all these ads, so kudos to Eric. And you'll see a lot of like real estate ads on the internet, and they look like garbage, and these look a lot better than them. And it's $200 a month, and like Eric said, you get like 6 or 7 impressions. So imagine every one of your leads seeing one of these really cool ads 6 or 7 times a day. It's like, if you have just like sort of a slight relationship with these these clients, they'll say like, oh, this guy's legit. They have professional ads that I see all the time. You know, I might be new to the area, but or I'm thinking of leaving or whatever, but this guy is legit. They have good professional looking advertising, and it's really cheap at $200. So that's my for Eric.
Thank you. I've I've definitely had a lot of practice working on these. I don't pretend to be a professional designer, but they do look. Yeah, Dan's right. There's a lot of advertising out there that looks, I don't know, dated, I guess, for lack of a better term. Some people pay for an ad set and hold on to it for 10 years, and they keep using the same kind. So, but anyway, yeah. So like I was saying, a lot of flexibility with what we can do. You know, taglines, logos. You know, we try to get the best quality headshots and logos that we can. Through the registration process, there's a form you fill out, and we'll talk about a link for that a little bit later on. But we kind of collect some basic information from you. And then if you have graphic assets that you want to provide, like higher quality headshots or things that might not be on your CINC site, you can email them to me and I'll include them in your ads. And you're also able to provide like your own custom ads. If you don't like what I do, I won't be offended. If you have design services available or something like that, I can provide more technical information so that you can run with your own stuff. We don't prohibit people from doing that. So that's an option available as well. So now I just want to kind of talk about some of the kind of, I guess, things to be aware of with using remarketing as far as eligibility and things like that. So with traditional remarketing, branded remarketing that we've done up until this SOI audience point, sort of the baseline, if you will, is based off of incoming site traffic to your CINC site. So whether or not you're using Sphere of Influence, if you want remarketing, this would be the minimum of what we include would be Google services using this kind of audience. So for that audience to be eligible, you need to have 100 site visitors a month. As I mentioned, the more incoming traffic that you have, the bigger that audience is, the more effective the campaign is, because we're eligible to show it to more people. We can include Facebook with that as well. We just have to associate it with a business page, but the audience minimums are pretty small relative to Google. So that's something that we can include. There's just a few other little steps we have to do to get that set up. As far as Sphere of Influence remarketing, sort of the meat and potatoes of this presentation, Google does have a different set of requirements for that audience to be eligible. So they need a absolute minimum of 1,000 matched results. And what that means is we take your entire database and we hand it over to Google, and they try to match it based off the information we give them. So that's usually first and last name, email, phone number, country of residence, and zip code maybe. We don't necessarily have to have every single piece of information for every single person, but the more accurate the information is, the better Google and Facebook can do to match that and create a higher quality audience, the more likely they are to make matches. So we're kind of telling people based off of our preliminary data that you probably want to start with around 1,400 people in your database. Again, the more you have, the more successful it'll be. But this is kind of like a augmentation of the remarketing service. So we want to make sure that, you know, if you're interested in doing Sphere of Influence, that you're actually able to do it successfully. And that's going to come with having a larger inventory. And Facebook, again, the numbers are smaller there. We recommend at least 100 people. Facebook doesn't do a great job of telling us how accurate the audience matching actually is. Preliminary results suggest that it's about 75 to 80% accurate when we give that information in terms of like how often they're able to successfully make a match with what we give them. Google's is slightly higher, but you have to have more complete information. And then, as I've mentioned, everything works better with more incoming traffic. So if you have a lot more PPC spend, you're spending on Google, you're spending on Facebook, more people that visit your site, the more impressions we're eligible for with your marketing service. And again, larger databases make for better SOI campaigns. So if you're interested, you can go to cincremarketing.com. There's some information there about the ads that we use and how our marketing works. And, you know, just click on the register button when you're ready to sign up, and there's a little form there. You just kind of fill it out, and, you know, I'll reach out to you with any questions that I have or any follow-ups. And when your ads are ready, I send you a little preview link so you can see what your ads look like. We address changes at that time, and then I kind of go over next steps at that point.
Add that. And also, if you are a current client who is using remarketing and you are not using the Sphere of Influence product, you can go in and fill out that form and just check that box, and then Eric will upload the list.
Yeah, the Sphere of Influence aspect isn't compulsory. It's not required. Like if you just want to do branded remarketing, that's totally fine. Or if you know that you have a small database, but you want to get started anyway, and you have a good amount of incoming site traffic, that's fine too. Just for, not to put too fine a point on this, but for legal purposes, we have to have your consent to use this information so that we're not just pushing a bunch of information willy-nilly to our advertising network. So that's why that question is on, to say that, yes, we can use your information for Sphere of Influence, but all of that is 256-bit encrypted as soon as we hand it over to them, and we have no way to manage it after the fact. So once they have it, they manage it, and they just say, hey, you have, you know, X number of people to advertise to.
Looking at the Q&A, somebody asked a question about like who owns the database or something, like if you stop using CINC. This has nothing to do with it. You still own, we're not taking ownership over anything. We're just adding it into Google so they can do this math. It's still your data. It's still everything. And then a couple other questions that were on the Q&A. Yes, you can do custom ads. I think Eric answered that, but if you have some ads, you can run them too, or we could run them if you provide the copy or the banners. We can run them. And then somebody asked if with VPNs does remarketing work?
Ooh.
Good
question. So I'll actually need to do a little bit more research on this. Based off of what I know so far, I think if they're doing some kind of location masking, well, okay, so this is a slightly more technical question, but so on the standard remarketing service, we do location targeting. It's a little bit broader than what you might see with like a pay-per-click campaign, but we do try to confine the area that the ads are served to be roughly around your target markets. Like I said, it's a little bit bigger just to kind of give us a little bit more wiggle room. With SOI, what I noticed when we were doing our initial testing, they weren't really working at all when we had location constraints attached to the campaign, but they were working when I took them away. And I think that has something to do with the algorithm that they use to match the browser information. When that match is conducted, it doesn't pull location data along with it. So for example, like if somebody in your database had a phone that they were using to browse your CINC site or whatever, or even if they're not, but they were like located in Chicago, if Google, when they match this information, has this unique browser ID attached to this phone, it knows that that device may not always be in Chicago. So if we include a, targeting radius around Chicago, it says, oh, this person doesn't have any location data, so it excludes them from being able to serve the ads, if that kind of makes sense. I don't have like concrete evidence from Google for it, and understandably so. They're trying to be very protective about like privacy and making sure people's information isn't giving much away, and month over month, advertisers are being very heavily regulated to make sure that we're respectful of people's privacy, which I totally understand. So I think for the purposes of SOI, with regards to a VPN, if it can match to a browser through a VPN, I think it would work. I really couldn't guarantee one way or the other if like you happen to know that a lot of people in your database use VPNs. I feel like that might be kind of an extreme circumstance, but yeah, I really couldn't say one way or the other. My gut tells me it's going to exclude any location data that it assigns to it and just serve the ads anyway. But if they're like spoofing their location, which is really popular for people that use like VPNs and entertainment services to try and get local channels from a place that you're not in, then I couldn't really say one way or the other if the ads will show to them or not.
So the answer is a maybe. So we're going to go possibly, or we're not sure. Anyway, but that's a small percent of the market it should work for the majority, 95% or whatever of the list that does match up properly. And then a couple other questions is, what is Listcast Plus versus Listcast?
Oh, so Listcast Plus is, or I'm sorry, Listcast, just the normal level of service is $300 per month. Listcast Plus is $500 per month. Both would include ads on Facebook and Google. The difference is just, more spend, more impressions. So on Listcast, we would guarantee, like remarketing, at least 10,000 impressions per month. That's coming from Facebook and Instagram, as well as the Google Display Network. And then on Listcast Plus, the $500 a month package, that goes up to 20,000. So it's just, more spend, more ability to show the ad to more people.
And Instagram is included in Facebook, right?
Yep, Facebook owns Instagram. So all of our ads by default run on Facebook and Instagram, and we would recommend that you keep that mix. When Facebook opened up Instagram advertising within the ads manager, that dropped our cost per lead. It was something like 20%. That was a couple of years ago, so I don't remember exactly. But there's more competition that's going into Instagram, but it's still, I'd say, less so than Facebook. So running on both networks makes sense. The demographic groups it reaches are different, and just the common thought for advertising is the more people that you can relevantly include in your audience to show ads, the better it's going to perform, because again, it's an auction and it's just more chances to win that auction. And I saw a Listcast question from a client in California that I want to make sure that I address. I should have been more clear. We can't start, sorry, I was holding a Lego and it just shot out of my hand and went across my keyboard. But we can't start new Listcast campaigns in California. That CCPA change went into effect in January. And Facebook forever said they weren't going to make a change. They weren't going to make a change. We noticed performance changes in California starting in February, and they finally said, okay, yeah, we did make a change, sorry. So we haven't been able to start new campaigns in California since January 1st. Advertisers that were already running in there were able to keep existing people in the audience. So that should still be working if you were running before that January 1 deadline. I want to make sure that I address that. We're also, another benefit of working with a company like us, we have representatives in the Facebook real estate vertical. So we're working very closely with them to figure out a long-term solution to this problem. But for right now, the ads are still running fine. So that's it.
All right. One final topic I wanted to cover is another question that I get asked pretty regularly is, what's the ROI? What's the return on investment on remarketing? And you'll notice I haven't really discussed click-through rates or conversion rates or cost per lead or anything like that, because it's important to kind of, although this is a form of online advertising, it does behave fundamentally different from a lot of the other stuff that we do in terms of pay-per-click advertising. These are more like just kind of like an online billboard, if that kind of helps you think about it. So to ask the question of like, well, how do I determine how effective this level of advertising has been? Like, we can't really determine in the same kind of conventional means, like this advertisement led to these 3 sales that I made over this period of time. And initially that might kind of sound discouraging, but I think if you think about this kind of advertising in a different light, it makes a little bit more sense in terms of like, do I need to add this to my marketing campaigns? And I have a few examples here of some popular brands that we're all kind of familiar with. But Delta can't really ask the question, how many airline tickets were sold based off of this advertising that we're doing at the Braves Stadium. Mercedes-Benz doesn't know how many cars that they've sold because they bought the rights to the new stadium where the Falcons play. But there's still intrinsic value in attaching your name to stuff like that, and having that level of visibility has a return on investment, even if we can't know exactly what it is in terms of dollars or conversions or something And so I just want to point this out because it's helpful to think about this in the context of like establishing that trust in your brand and that familiarity has value, even if it's intangible. And that's kind of the difference between branded remarketing and other pay-per-click advertising that we do, is by keeping yourself top of mind, it helps encourage people to move forward with your company over somebody else. And I think these are some kind of great examples of that. Like, you know, nobody sees an Amazon Prime billboard and immediately pulls over and buys a pair of shoes, but they do recognize the brand, and it might encourage them to engage in that behavior later. So that's kind of the marketing niche that this sort of form of advertising falls in.
And I think that this goes back to the point about diversifying your advertising mix. If you are only spending $200 on lead generation advertising, I wouldn't recommend doing remarketing. But if you are spending $2,500 on Google Buyer and $500 on Listcast, like, you are getting a swarm of leads coming in. The remarketing will make those leads more effective, because those people will be seeing your face all over the internet with these cool ads. And even the sphere of influence, I think that almost changes things a little bit, because I think the sphere of influence advertising is really powerful, because you're able to reach out to people who have never been to your website. They could be leads that you've had they could have been in your old CRM for 5 years and you haven't talked to them in 5 years. Now you've inputted all these leads into this new CRM, where you're able to reach out to these leads more easily, because we have all these cool tools, these texting and the emails and all that. It's just another good way to reach out to these people. So, but anyway, if you are spending $2,000 a month, you should definitely be doing remarketing. You're spending $500, you could do remarketing too. But I wouldn't do it if you're spending $100. But it's a very effective way to, you know, stay on top of mind with, I don't know if that's English, but of your leads, and at an affordable price, and you get.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I like to have this conversation with people. Is as long as you understand what this is and what it isn't, I think that's kind of the important takeaway. If every dollar that you have available for marketing needs to go towards lead generation, remarketing is not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
But if you're in a position where having that brand recognition, where planting your flag in your market is something that's important to you, this is something that can help you achieve that. And as long as you kind of recognize what that is, you'll be more satisfied with the end result.